It is customary to chant a Shanti mantra before Vedic study. So let us start with Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavati Tamastu Ma Vidhisavahai. Om Santi Santi Santi. Vedanta is addressed in this video. Vedanta deals with the subject of self-inquiry. This study of self-inquiry leads to the realization of God, which we call moksha. Moksha is eternal bliss, which every person aspires for. Vedanta literally means the end part of Veda. Among many, three most important books in Sanatana Dharma is called the Prasthanatraya. They are Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras. There are about 108 Upanishads that are readily available. Among them, 10 are most important, for which Sri Adi Shankaracharya wrote commentaries. These books explore the nature of the Supreme Being called the Paramatma and that of Jivatma, the indwelling power in every person, and their relationship. There are several schools of thought regarding the nature of Paramatma and that of Jivatma and their relationship. Some think they are not two different entities, they are one and the same, giving rise to Advaita philosophy. In Advaita, everything is Maya of Paramatma. On the other hand, Visishtadvaita believes Paramatma is eternal and the soul and the material world exists due to Paramatma. Nature is not an illusion, while the soul, that is Jivatma, is Paramatma's plurality. These differences arise due to different interpretations of Brahma Sutras. However, all the acharyas aim to lead their followers on how to realize God. So the goal of every person is to realize God, which is eternal bliss. It also means liberation from the birth and death cycle. Depending on the disposition of a person, mental capacity, and inclination, Vedas prescribed four paths: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, and Gnana Yoga to achieve moksha. Karma Yoga is basically for a common man who can lead a normal life and perform all actions without aspiring for their fruits. Basically, actions are performed as the God's will. Visishtadvaita prescribes devotion to God leading to Bhakti Yoga. Raja Yoga stresses on the control of mind and body through dhyana, austerity, and asanas. In Advaita, realization of God means unraveling of Maya. It implies acquiring proper knowledge, that is Gnana. Majority of Upanishads preaches this required Gnana, which we call Gnana Yoga. Karma Yoga encourages people to do good deeds. Such acts purify one's mind and help the person to see humanity as one entity, and all are children of God. Karma Yoga beseeches everybody to perform their duties as the will of God but not for their outcome. It urges every person to see himself in others. That leads to the realization that all Jivatmas are the same and God is in everybody. Bhakti Yoga removes all the desires of the world and makes one focus on God. At the peak of love for God, one sees himself in God and God in himself and in everything. That is nirvana. In Raja Yoga, one attempts to tame the body and mind by practicing Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. After the mind is fully under control, one would perform dhyana and achieve samadhi, a state where one communes with God. In Jnana Yoga, one seeks to know the nature of the self. The self-inquiry leads one to the realization that they are none other than the Paramatma. That is, one realizes Aham Brahmasmi. In this video, we explore Jnana Yoga. Now, before we embark on the subject of Jnana Yoga, that is self-inquiry, let us first understand the nature of Paramatma. Everybody, at one time or the other, wondered what God is. It turns out that Taittiriya Upanishad defined God as Satyam, Gnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Let us now try to understand each word by analyzing it. Anantam means infinite. Satya means real. But real things cannot be infinite. However, Sat means that it exists. All real things have one thing in common, that is existence. That is, they exist. Hence, Satya means all that exists. Existence has no limitation on space or time. Hence, it is Anantam. Hence, everything that exists is Brahman. Animals, plants, people, and nature exist. Therefore, everything that we perceive is Brahman. Now let us look at the second attribute of the God, that is Gnanam. Gnanam means knowledge. Since everyone has different levels of knowledge, knowledge is finite. Therefore, it cannot be infinite, that is Anantam. To resolve this apparent contradiction, we use the implied meaning of the word knowledge, that is Chit or consciousness. Without consciousness, there is no knowledge. Hence, here we take the Gnanam to be consciousness. Consciousness is all-pervasive, hence Anantam. Therefore, consciousness is Brahman. Now let us look at the last attribute of God, that is Anantam. Anantam has three aspects: time, space, and Vastu or object. Time, it could be past, or present, or future. This implies God was present in the past, and He is present in the present time, and will be present in the future. The second aspect of Anantam is space. This implies God pervades everywhere. That is, He is present everywhere. In other words, There is no place where he is not present. The final aspect is vastu, that is, object. This implies he is present in everything. Hence, Brahman has no time limitation, space limitation, and is present in everything. We learned the attributes of God, that is, all that exists is Brahman and pervades space and time. We also learned consciousness is Brahman. We now try to understand the nature of the self. The systematic analysis of the nature of the self is Gnana Yoga. Several Upanishads teach us the Gnana Yoga, as Upanishads are the Gnana Kanda of Vedas. The 10 Upanishads, for which Sri Adi Shankaracharya has written commentaries, mainly address the nature of the self. The essence of these Upanishads is epitomized by the 4 Mahavakyas. The systematic study of the self leads to these Mahavakyas. They are Prajnanam Brahma, which means consciousness is Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahma. Tattvamasi, which means that thou art. I am Atma Brahma, which means this self is Brahma. The realization of these Mahavakyas is Gnana Yoga. We now try to embark on self-inquiry, that is, the study of the self. In everybody, there is something that drives that person, which we call the self. We will now try to unravel the nature of the self. By systematic study, we will find out what it is not and what it is. Most importantly, we will show that it is not the body, not even the mind. Eventually, we will show it is consciousness. Finally, we will establish the relationship between the Paramatma and the self. We start with the known fact that the self is always there. Hence, it is constant and permanent. To find out about the self, we start observing the day-to-day activity of a person. To unravel the nature of the self, we use the Drig Drisha analysis. That is, we will analyze what things are seen and who is the observer in the body that has seen those things. In every waking moment, we see various objects with our eyes, such as tables, other people, trees, etc. Here, what is seen are the objects, shapes, colors, etc. The eyes are the seer or the observer. However, the mind is aware of the various conditions of the eyes. It knows sometimes the eyes are blurred and watery. The mind also knows if the eyes go blind. Hence, eyes are not constant and permanent. So, eyes cannot be the self we are seeking. So, we determined eyes cannot be the self since they are not constant and permanent. Now let us see if the mind could be the self we are looking for. We are all aware of the changes in the mind and the changes it undergoes from birth. Since the mind is constantly changing, it is not a constant or permanent entity. Hence, mind cannot be the self. But something is aware of all the changes in the mind, which we call witness consciousness. Since we do not need another consciousness to reveal the witness consciousness and its contents, it is the ground or the substratum of all experience. Hence, it cannot have a beginning or an end. In other words, it is eternal. This consciousness is the self we are seeking. Having understood what the self is, we will now try to find its relationship with the Paramatma. Previously, when we discussed the attributes of God, namely Satyam, Gnanam and Anantam, Brahma, we concluded that Paramatma is consciousness. Through Drigdrishya analysis during the self-inquiry, we came to the conclusion that the self is nothing but consciousness. Putting the two together, we conclude that the self is nothing but Paramatma. Once the Paramatma instills in a body, it becomes Jivatma. However, there is no difference between Paramatma and Jivatma. It is like, suppose there is a lighted wick, Paramatma, and it goes and lights up several wicks, Jivatmas, as shown on the side. Once they are all lit and randomly moved, then can we tell which one is the one that lit the others? Similarly, we cannot tell which is Paramatma and which is Jivatma. Thus, we realize that Paramatma is Jivatma, and that leads to Aham Brahmasmi. That is, a person realizes he is Brahma himself. If the witness consciousness is the one who is aware of all things, then how can the eyes, mind, and other sensory organs perceive? We will now try to explore the mechanism used by the eyes, mind, and sensory organs to perceive. To explore that, we introduce the concept of reflected consciousness. Before we do that, let us understand a couple of natural phenomena. An iron rod has no heat of its own. However, it radiates heat after heating it in a kiln. Similarly, the moon is not self-luminous, but shines, that is, reflects light when the sunlight falls on it. We use the moonlight to see just as we use sunlight. Now, let us look at the body. It can be divided into three parts. Gross body, subtle body consisting of the mind, thoughts, feelings, etc., and the self. When the witness consciousness shines on the subtle body, it reflects. We call it reflected consciousness. Mind gets consciousness from the reflected consciousness, so the mind can perceive. Sensory organs borrow, that is, reflect consciousness from the mind. Body borrows consciousness from the sensory organs. Now the mind is divided into two. The I sense part, that part of the mind associated with the feeling of I, that is, feeling of ego. The second part of the mind is associated with the intellect, understanding, memory, etc. The I sense part of the mind and the reflected consciousness combinedly act as the consciousness in the body. Since consciousness exists in the body, we feel we are the body. The realization that Jivatma is Paramatma is moksha. From the previous slides, we learned that much. However, we do not feel liberated. Reasons for not being able to liberate are simple. That is, we are not ready to realize God yet. That is because all are born with three innate gunas, namely sattva, rajo, and tamas gunas. Sattva guna binds the jivatma by creating an attachment for a sense of happiness and knowledge. Rajoguna binds the jivatma by creating an attachment for the fruitive actions. Tamoguna binds the jivatma with innate laziness, sleep, and negligence. Unless these bondages are broken, one cannot attain moksha. The body and mind have to be conditioned to realize God. For example, when we go to a temple, we go around the inner sanctum 3 times to prepare our minds to see the deity inside. Similarly, we have to prepare our mind properly to realize God. To prepare one's mind to realize God, Sri Adi Shankaracharya prescribed 15 steps to practice. Those are Yama, control of the senses; Niyama, control of the mind; Tyaga, renunciation; Mauna, silence; Desa, place; Kala, time; Asana, posture; Mulabandha, root that restrains; Deha Samyamam, equipoise of the body; Drukstiti, steadiness of the vision; Prana Samyamanam, control of the vital forces; Pratyahara, self-withdrawal; Dharana, concentration; Atma Dhyana, meditation; Samadhi, complete absorption. You might have noticed 8 of these 15 items are borrowed from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So, to realize God, one has to practice these steps to condition one's body and mind. With this, we have completed the video on self-inquiry, also known as Gnana Yoga.